Before we dive into this intense sci-fi tale, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video with anyone who loves epic space stories. Your support helps us keep exploring the galaxy, one story at a time. Now, brace yourself for a journey into fear, power, and the terrifying brilliance of humanity. The Galactic Deathworld Summit was not designed for species who valued peace. It wasn't, even for the apex predators of their home planets. Unless those predators had survived poisons, plagues, extinction-level events, and the casual malice of their own environments, it was a tournament for the damned. A showcase of evolution's most brutal experiments where survival wasn't just expected, it was demanded. Every century, the summit sent out invitations. They weren't pretty or ceremonial. They were challenges, cold and sharp as a knife pressed against your throat. Come and prove you deserve to live or be remembered as a footnote in some dusty galactic archive. Civilizations waited centuries for the honor of being recognized. Some would rather destroy themselves in their own sun than show weakness by refusing the call. Commander Thulos of the Invitation Committee had seen species rise and fall in the blood-soaked sands of the Deathworld arena. He thought nothing could surprise him anymore. That was until an alert blinked onto his console, signaling the inclusion of a new participant, species no one in their right mind had nominated. He lazily waved a claw over the interface. The screen sprang to life, casting a cold blue light over his scaled features. Species, human, classification, tier to endurance species, homeworld, SAL3 Earth, gravity, 1.0 standard, atmospheric toxicity, negligible, apex predator status, no, notable achievements, primitive spaceflight, viral entertainment networks, reality TV, TikTok. For a moment, there was silence. Then the chamber filled with a low, grinding noise, the sound of Thulos laughing. A terrible, wet sound, like bones being ground to dust inside a metal press. Primitive entertainment formats, no apex status, weak gravity, Thulos muttered, voice dripping with disbelief. What sick joke is this? Blurp, his gelatinous assistant, quivered beside him. Commander, shall I rescind the invitation? Thulos almost agreed. Almost. But then a darker impulse, born from centuries of boredom and cruelty, flared in his secondary brain lobe. No, Thulos said, the word curling like smoke. Let them come. Let them be crushed before the eyes of the galaxy. It will be ... instructive. The invitation was confirmed. Transmission relays activated. Across 17 sectors and a million light years, the challenge sped toward the little blue planet called Earth. They didn't expect an answer. Certainly not an answer like the one they received just 36 hours later. Greetings from Earth Expeditionary Council. We accept. Delegation roster as follows. Castrol, Reeves, ex-Marine, Team Leader, Dr. Neoda Wright, Xenobiologist, Ravi Kapoor, Combat Engineer, Malachi Goldstein, Wildcard. P.S. We've opened a betting pool on our survival odds. Current spread, 10,000 to 1 against. Interested in placing a wager? The attached message was punctuated with a symbol Earth cultures called a winking emoji. Thulos reread the transmission twice, his 6 eyes blinking out of sync. His claws scraped against the metal of his chair. They're mocking us, he growled. Blurp burbled uncertainly. Perhaps. They are naive. No, Thulos snarled, voice cold and hard. They know exactly what they are doing. Across the galactic nets, news spread like wildfire. Humans, a tier to species from a non-death world, had accepted the Deathworld Summit's challenge. Wagers shifted. Analysts, biologists, and warriors from hundreds of civilizations tuned in. Most predicted the humans would last no more than 5 minutes. Some gave them 10, out of morbid generosity. The Deathworld Summit itself was a monstrosity, a titan of architecture orbiting the blackened husk of a long-dead sun. It was part arena, part crucible, part mass grave. Shields the size of continents flared against meteors and rogue plasma bursts. Hostile fleets kept perpetual station around it, their captains daring each other to blink first. And inside its cold, blood-stained halls, representatives of every monster race gathered to witness a new spectacle. They came not to observe an even match, but a slaughter. The death field was ready. A jagged, barren landscape designed to test not just strength, but will, ingenuity, and the ability to improvise. Boiling rivers of acid ran through canyons deeper than Earth's Marianas Trench. Gravity anomalies distorted perception and movement. Weather control systems whipped up storms that could flay flesh from bone, And then there were the predators. Creatures engineered in laboratories and forged on worlds that made Earth's worst disasters look like minor inconveniences. Things with too many eyes, too many teeth, and no concept of mercy. The humans arrived exactly on schedule. There was no fanfare, no grand announcement, just the crackle of the teleportation array, and, for figures stepping onto the jagged black stones of the arena floor, they didn't wear ornamental armor or display banners. Their gear was practical, patched, scarred, lived in. Castral Reeves led the way, his powered exosuit humming faintly as he scanned the terrain with veteran eyes. Dr. Naoda Wright followed close behind, her compact scanner sweeping for biological signatures. Ravi Kapoor adjusted the compact device strapped to his chest, an experimental field disruptor of his own design. And Malachi Goldstein, who carried no visible weapon, simply rolled his shoulders and grinned. From the observation galleries above, thousands of beings watched in fascination and scorn. The arena's speakers crackled. New species, human, challenge, survival run, objective, reach extraction point, no assistance, no mercy. At the far end of the arena, gates slammed open, and hell was unleashed. Beasts thundered into the field, their roars echoing across the death field. Claws raked against stone, acidic saliva hissed against the ground. Wings the size of solar sails beat the toxic air into a frenzy. Most newcomers ran. Some screamed. The humans did neither. Castral raised a hand, signaling his team with the calm of a man ordering lunch. Positions, he said. In a flash, Ravi dropped to one knee, slamming his device into the ground. A shockwave burst outward, hurling smaller predators off their feet. Dr. Naoda tossed out canisters, chemical mines laced with pheromones that confused scent-based trackers. Malachi simply laughed and sprinted toward the largest beast, a thing with 3 heads and a hunger older than stars, knives flashing in his hands. The audience gasped, not because the humans were fighting, because they were fighting smart, efficient, ruthless, methodical, not panicked prey, but predators in their own right. Thulos leaned forward in his private viewing box, one claw tapping a slow rhythm against the rail. This was wrong. This was very, very wrong. On the field, Castral took down a leaping predator with a burst from his kinetic rifle, then barked orders that the team followed without hesitation. Left flank, 2 incoming high-speed, Naoda, Gas M, Ravi, lay charges at waypoint Delta. They moved like a single organism, fluid, deadly. Ravi whooped as one of his traps triggered, engulfing a beast 3 times his size in a chain reaction of plasma bursts. Boom, baby, he crowed. Focus, Castral snapped, though a ghost of a smile touched his lips. In the control rooms above, the Deathworld organizers stared at their monitors in growing horror. This wasn't just luck. The humans were adapting faster than any species had ever done in the history of the summit, and they were laughing while they did it. Blurp quivered beside Thulos, his gelatinous form pulsing with something like fear. Commander, he whispered, perhaps we underestimated them. Thulos said nothing. He could see the truth for himself. The humans weren't just surviving, they were thriving, and the real monsters hadn't even shown up yet. The humans moved through the death field like a razor through silk, cutting a path that should not have been possible. The predators came in waves, a living tide of muscle, fang, and malice. But each wave met the same fate: confusion, traps, precision strikes. Castral barked orders, with the ease of someone who had seen too many battlefields, while his team executed without hesitation, their movements a brutal symphony of survival. The crowd in the observation chambers had gone from jeering mockery to stunned silence. Only the crackle of static and the distant screeching of dying beasts filled the void. Thulos gripped the rail before him, the tips of his claws gouging deep furrows into the hardened alloy. This was not how the Deathworld Summit was supposed to unfold. Humans were supposed to amuse for a moment, scream, bleed, and then be forgotten. They were not supposed to thrive. In the arena, Malachi danced among the hulking monstrosities with an insane grace, dodging strikes that would have crushed him flat, leaving bloody trails where his twin blades kissed flesh. Ravi grinned from ear to ear, laying charge after charge, each one timed to create choke points that slowed the enemy's advance. Neoda's canisters filled the air with pheromones and chemical blurs that made the predators turn on each other, their senses short-circuiting in the chaos. Extraction point into clicks, Castral said over the team channel, voice calm but clipped. Not going to make it easy for us, boss, Ravi chuckled, throwing a glance at a fresh wave of creatures pouring from new breach gates. Bigger, meaner, faster. That's the point, Castral replied dryly. Above them, a new figure moved into position behind the arena's command dais, a delegate from the Vargos, one of the oldest and most feared Deathworld species, leaned forward, his mandibles clicking thoughtfully. Others shifted nervously. For the first time in centuries, there was something resembling uncertainty. The arena shifted. The gravity deepened suddenly, slamming the humans to one knee as the field recalibrated. New traps burst open, mines, acid jets, kinetic snares, environmental controls activated. Localized storms of slicing winds and chemical rain. Thulos allowed himself a small, cruel smile. Let's see how long you last now, primitives. Castral grunted under the increased pressure, recalculating faster than thought. Kapoor, countergrav. Naota, deploy weather shields. On it, Ravi grunted, slamming a secondary device into the ground. A low-frequency hum vibrated through the arena, pushing back against the oppressive force just enough for them to rise to their feet. Naota triggered her wrist device, releasing a series of micro-drones that stitched a temporary shield above them, deflecting the worst of the chemical rain. Malachi, still grinning like a lunatic, simply crouched low, knives ready, waiting for the next target to come within reach. They're adapting to the countermeasures, Naota warned, scanning the rapidly changing data. Feeds, they're supposed to, Castral replied. That's the test. The next wave hit harder. The predators were faster now, their bodies modified by the arena's control systems, muscle enhancements, nerve accelerators, predatory intelligence. What had been mere beasts were becoming true hunters. One massive creature, resembling a fusion of wolf and crocodile, charged the team with terrifying speed. It leapt, jaws snapping wide enough to bite a small vehicle in half. Malachi didn't flinch. He moved into the leap, sliding beneath the beast in a low roll, and drove both knives upward into the creature's exposed underbelly. The force of the collision threw him 10 meters across the field, but the creature crashed down dead behind him. 5 points for style. Ravi crowed. Focus, Castral snapped again, though the edges of his voice held something dangerous. Exhilaration. They pushed forward, using precision explosives to carve paths through the densest clusters, baiting some of the smarter predators into mutual destruction. Naota deployed bio-scramblers, disorienting anything that tried to organize into a proper pack. And still, the arena shifted. Barriers rose from the ground, cutting off paths, herding the humans into kill boxes. Automated turrets emerged, ancient and deadly, targeting anything warm-blooded. Gravity pockets flickered, on and off, sending projectiles flying at insane trajectories. Castral saw it for what it was, desperation. They're trying to pin us, he said. Well, Malachi said, limping back into formation. That's rude. They broke formation only long enough for Ravi to lay a series of short fuse mines behind them. When the pursuing horde pressed harder, the mines detonated in sequence, collapsing part of the terrain and trapping dozens of the predators under tons of debris. The extraction beacon flickered ahead, tantalizingly close, but standing between them and safety was something new, a thing born of nightmares even by Deathworld standards. It stood 3 meters tall, plated in bone and armored hide, with 6 clawed limbs and eyes that burned with a natural intelligence. This was not an arena spawn. This was a champion. The crowd above stirred again. Baits shifted wildly. Priority target, Naota breathed. Yeah, Castral agreed. Goldstein, you're up. Malachi wiped blood from his mouth, smiled like a man who had been waiting for this his whole life, and stepped forward. The champion roared, the sound ripping through the heavy air, shaking stones loose from the cracked terrain. Malachi laughed back. The two collided in a blur of motion, flesh, and fury. Malachi moved faster than any unaugmented human should have. His knives flashed, deflecting, killing blows by microns, drawing thin lines of blood where he found weaknesses. But the champion adapted just as fast, predicting Malachi's feints, countering with brutal swipes. The team didn't interfere. They knew better. This was Malachi's arena now. Above, Thulos leaned so far forward his breathing misted the edge of the observation window. Blurp quivered beside him, barely daring to watch. Malachi ducked a swipe, vaulted onto the champion's back, and drove one blade deep into the gap between armored plates. The creature howled, bucking wildly, trying to shake him free. He held on. The champion smashed against a rock spire, trying to crush the human like an insect. Malachi, let go at the last possible second, hit the ground rolling, and came up with his second knife, slicing across the creature's exposed throat. Black blood sprayed into the air. The champion staggered, bellowed one last time, and collapsed. Malachi stood over it, chest heaving, blood dripping from his knives. The crowd erupted, a chaotic, confused mix of awe, horror, and something far more dangerous. Respect. Castrol motioned sharply. Move. Extraction in 90 seconds. They sprinted, the surviving predators too shocked or too smart to pursue. The extraction point flared to life, the teleportation beam locking onto their signatures. As they dematerialized, Castrol spared one last look back at the arena, at the broken beasts, at the stunned faces, at Thulos, frozen in disbelief. The humans didn't just survive the Deathworld Summit, they owned it, and somewhere deep inside the station, in dark rooms where deals were made and empires rose and fell, a new understanding began to take root. Humans were no mistake. They were an extinction-level event waiting to happen, and the galaxy had just invited them in. The teleportation beam dissolved them into energy, light pulsing against the cracked stones of the death field. For a heartbeat, the humans ceased to exist as physical beings, riding a data stream toward the summit's medical and debriefing decks. It should have been safe. It should have been over. It wasn't. Somewhere deep within the station's network, foreign code burrowed into the teleportation pathways. A virus, ancient and vicious, designed not to kill, but to divert, to redirect. Castrol felt the shift first, a twisting sensation like falling sideways through the fabric of reality. Hold tight, he barked, though his voice was just vibrations scattered through 1,000 fragmented particles. The others responded instinctively, reinforcing their neural cohesion, maintaining their sense of self through sheer willpower. The beam spat them out in a place not listed on any summit maps. Darkness pressed against them the moment they reformed. The ground beneath their feet was rough, metallic, and cold. The air tasted stale, processed beyond all life. Emergency lighting flickered along the edges of a massive, ancient hangar bay. Not the med deck, Ravi muttered, hand already drifting toward his toolkit. No shit, Malachi replied, rolling his shoulders and scanning the shadows with narrowed eyes. Naoda ran a quick bioscan. Environmental readings unstable. No immediate threats detected. But something's wrong here. Something very wrong. Castrol didn't need a scan to tell him that. His instincts, honed over years of fighting in places the universe preferred to forget, screamed in warning. This is a setup, he said grimly. Hidden speakers crackled to life, and a voice slithered from the walls. Welcome, humans, it hissed, the words wrapped in mockery and anticipation. Congratulations on surviving the death field. But tell me, how will you fare against something older? Something ... hungry. A low rumble shook the floor, distant but growing. Form up, Castrol ordered, voice tight. The team fell into a defensive circle, weapons ready. From the far end of the hangar, massive doors screeched open, metal grinding against metal. Darkness deeper than shadow itself spilled out. And then they saw it. Something that should not exist. It moved wrong, too many joints bending the wrong way, skin shimmering between physical and spectral. Eyes, dozens of them, opened along its length, each gleaming with malevolent intelligence. Ravi's mouth went dry. That's not an arena creature. No, Naoda whispered. That's ancient. The creature surged forward, shrieking in a frequency that rattled teeth and bones. Castrol didn't hesitate. Lighted up, the first volley of gunfire struck the creature dead center. Kinetic rounds, plasma bursts, micro-explosives, enough firepower to bring down a combat transport. The creature barely slowed. Instead, it adapted. Wounds closed almost instantly, the flesh weaving itself back together with sickening fluidity. Where kinetic impacts should have shattered bone, the creature's body rippled, absorbing the force. Yoda's scanner screamed with alerts. It's mutating, she shouted, adapting to our weapons. Then hit it harder, Castrol snapped. Malachi charged first, hurling a concussion grenade directly into one of the creature's many maws. It exploded with a flash of white-hot energy, momentarily stunning the beast. Ravi sprinted forward, laying a chain of charges along the walls and ceiling, planning to bring the structure down if needed. They fought not to win, but to survive long enough to find a way out. The creature retaliated with a speed that defied physics. A tendril whipped out, catching Ravi across the side and hurling him into a pile of broken machinery. Ravi's down. Naoda cried, moving to cover him. Castrol unleashed a spray of covering fire, forcing the creature to pull back slightly. Malachi, new plan. Malachi nodded grimly. Distraction, distraction. Without waiting, Malachi sprinted directly at the creature, knives flashing, dodging the snapping jaws and slashing tendrils by fractions of an inch. He was a blur of motion, a ghost slipping through death's grasp. The creature followed, drawn by the threat, the promise of prey. Meanwhile, Castral dragged Ravi to relative cover, Naoda already working to stabilize his injuries. His left arm was broken, ribs cracked, but he was conscious and swearing creatively, which was a good sign. You idiots better blow this thing to hell, Ravi muttered through gritted teeth. Working on it, Castral said grimly. Malachi led the creature in a deadly dance, weaving through the hangar's skeletal remains, drawing it further from the team. Castral primed the charges Ravi had planted. Now, the hangar exploded inward. Beams the size of skyscrapers collapsed. Walls buckled. Flames roared through the confined space. The creature howled in fury, buried under tons of twisted metal. For a moment, there was only silence. Then the rubble shifted. The creature, battered and scorched but very much alive, heaved itself free. Naoda cursed under her breath. It's too resilient. We need another way. Castral thought fast, mind racing through options. They couldn't outfight it. They couldn't outrun it, which left one thing. Outthink it. Naoda, that old shuttle on the far side, Castral pointed. Can it fly? She checked her scanner. Barely. But the core might still have power. Ravi, can you rig it? Ravi grinned painfully. Give me 5 minutes and a prayer. Malachi, cover them. I'll draw ugly here. No arguments. The team split, each knowing that any hesitation meant death. Castral moved deliberately, firing controlled bursts, keeping the creature's attention locked on him. It responded with a rage born from being denied its feast. Malachi intercepted any tendrils that veered off course, his knives flashing silver arcs of defiance. Meanwhile, Naoda and Ravi worked feverishly, bypassing broken circuits, forcing the shuttle's systems to life. The ancient craft sputtered and groaned but answered their call. Ready? Ravi shouted. Go! Castral roared. They sprinted, the creature howling in fury as it realized its prey was escaping. Castral was the last to board, firing one last salvo into the beast's center mass before leaping onto the shuttle's ramp. Naoda slammed the hatch shut behind him. The shuttle lurched into motion, engines screaming as they strained against a century of rust and decay. The creature hurled itself after them, claws raking against the shuttle's hull, gouging deep wounds. Not today, freak show, Ravi muttered, punching the emergency thrusters. The shuttle blasted free of the hangar bay, leaving the ancient nightmare roaring in impotent fury. Behind them, inside, the humans collapsed into their seats, blooded, battered, but alive. Barely. What the hell was that thing? Ravi asked, cradling his broken arm. Naoda shook her head. Something they never intended us to meet. Something buried for a reason? Castral leaned back, his exosuit hissing as it depressurized. They set us up, he said coldly. Someone wanted us dead. Not just tested. Eliminated. Malachi grinned through split lips. Guess we're a bigger threat than they thought. The shuttle's nave systems flickered to life, plotting a course back to the main summit hub. But deep in the shadows of the summit station, unseen forces stirred. The humans had survived the death field. They had survived the trap. Now, the real war was about to begin. And humanity was just getting warmed up. The shuttle limped through the void, a battered relic dragging itself toward a station that now felt far less like a neutral ground and far more like an enemy stronghold. Systems flickered and coughed, warning lights painting the cockpit in a bloody hue. The humans sat in silence, each lost in their own calculations, their own realizations. They had been set up, that much was clear. The only question now was who and why. Castral Reeves leaned over the primary console, eyes scanning the limited sensor data the shuttle could still provide. No immediate pursuit, no hostile signatures, but he didn't relax. It would have been too easy. Anything? Naoda asked from behind him, adjusting the pressure bandages around Ravi's arm. Castral shook his head. Nothing yet, which means everything's wrong. Malachi chuckled dryly, wiping dried blood from his forehead. I always say, if nobody's shooting at you, you're about to walk into an ambush. The shuttle's proximity alarm buzzed, low and insistent. They were approaching one of the summit's secondary docking rings, a place meant for emergency landings, unmonitored arrivals, unsanctioned activities. In other words, the perfect place to disappear, or be disappeared. Touchdown in 90 seconds, Ravi said, voice hoarse but steady. Standard protocol. Naoda asked. No such thing anymore, Castral muttered. Stay loose, stay lethal. The shuttle coughed once more as it locked onto the docking clamps with a painful shudder. Hatches cycled, lights flickered. Gravity returned in a sickening lurch. Weapons ready, they disembarked. The docking bay was abandoned, or at least, it looked abandoned. No lights beyond the emergency strips glowing along the floor. No sound except the faint hum of life support systems, operating at minimal capacity. Castral's boots echoed softly as he moved forward, rifle raised. Naoda and Ravi fanned out, checking corners, scanning for traps. Malachi drifted at the edge of the formation, knives already in hand. "This place stinks of ambush," Ravi muttered under his breath. "Good," Malachi said, a wild glint in his eye. "Means we're in the right place." They moved cautiously through the bay and into the adjoining corridor, the walls lined with heavy blast doors and security checkpoints, all offline. Somewhere in the distance, faint mechanical sounds echoed, the creak of aging metal, the whisper of vented atmosphere. After 2 turns, they found the first body, a Zalanthian trader by the look of it, massive, armored, tusked, or at least, what was left of him. His torso had been bisected by something impossibly sharp, and the remains had been left to rot. Malachi crouched beside the corpse, studying it without touching. "Clean cut," he said. "High-energy blade. Military grade." "Great," Ravi muttered. "So whoever set the trap brought friends. Or unleashed something worse," Naoda added quietly. Ahead, a blast door hung half-open, sparking intermittently. Castral signaled a halt, motioned Naoda forward. She slipped up, scanned the entrance. Motion sensors dead. Environmental readings unstable. "I'm getting residual traces of something," she frowned. "Hard to categorize. Bioorganic, but not natural." Castral didn't like the sound of that. "Prep for breach." They moved in. Beyond the door, the corridor expanded into a maintenance concourse, and it was carnage. Bodies littered the floor, not just aliens, but station security forces. Veterans, heavily armed, heavily trained, torn apart like paper dolls. No signs of projectile weapon fire. No plasma scoring, just pure physical destruction. "Whatever did this," Ravi said, voice low, "it didn't need guns." Yoda's scanner blared a sudden warning. "Movement," she shouted. Something exploded out of the ceiling above them, a blur of speed and violence. Castral spun, firing instinctively. Malachi was already moving, knives whirling. Naoda ducked and rolled, coming up with her sidearm blazing. Ravi dropped low, trying to avoid friendly fire. The creature that landed among them was wrong. It shimmered at the edges of sight, too fast, too fluid. It moved like a virus given form, snapping out whip-like limbs tipped with claws that shrieked against armor and flesh. Castral's rounds slammed into it. Some passed through harmlessly. Others sparked against half-solid mass. It twisted, ignoring damage that should have crippled it. Malachi managed to slice into one of its limbs, black ichor spraying in all directions. The creature howled, a sound so alien it made teeth vibrate and stomachs churn. It recoiled, pulling back into the shadows, vanishing as if it had never been there. The team regrouped instantly, breathing hard. "Yorul," Ravi said, panting. "If it looks like a ghost and moves like a nightmare, we leave." "Agreed," Castral said grimly. "Move, now." They pushed deeper into the concourse, now fully aware that stealth was pointless. They weren't dealing with organized resistance. They were dealing with something unleashed, something hunting everything indiscriminately. Signs of battle were everywhere. Empty gun casings, smashed turrets, blood, so much blood, but no organized defense, no last stands. Whatever was here had torn through, professional killers like a blade through smoke. As they moved, Naoda pieced together fragments from abandoned consoles. "It's a bioweapon," she said finally. "Experimental, forbidden tech, grown, not built, designed to infiltrate, adapt, and annihilate. A living weapon, and someone let it loose on us," Ravi said. Castral nodded. "Not an accident. A message." They reached the command hub, or what was left of it. The main console was still operational, barely. Naoda interfaced, working quickly. "Hurry," Castral urged, scanning the darkened corridors beyond. Naoda's fingers flew over the controls. "There," she said, voice tight. "Download complete. Station schematics, admin logs, security, protocols. Maybe we can find out who set this up." Before they could celebrate, the floor vibrated under their feet. The creature was back, and it wasn't alone. Emerging from the shadows were more figures, corrupted shapes, half organic, half machine, things that had once been security personnel and now served only hunger and rage. "Time to go," Ravi shouted. They ran, fighting as they moved, a brutal retreat through blood and fire. Malachi covered their rear, his knives flashing in the strobe light chaos of emergency sirens. At the docking bay, they found Salvation, a battered, automated shuttle still powered, its systems on standby. Without hesitation, they piled in. Ravi hacked the controls, fingers ablur. The shuttle roared to life, engines flaring as the bay doors yawned open into the cold abyss of space. The creatures hurled themselves after the humans, claws raking the deck, mouths opening in silent screams. The shuttle blasted free, climbing toward the higher decks of the summit station, away from the nightmare below. Inside, the humans slumped into seats, bruised, blooded, but alive. Again, but not safe, never safe. As the shuttle climbed, Castral looked at the data Neota had pulled. Names, locations, plans, proof. Someone high up had decided that humanity was too dangerous to let live. And they had pulled the trigger, but they had missed. And humanity had a long memory, and longer knives. The battered shuttle rattled as it climbed through the station's artificial gravity wells, alarms, shrieking in protest at the abuse. Sparks showered from overhead panels, the smell of burning circuitry filling the cramped cabin. Castral kept his eyes locked on the view ahead, endless metal corridors, docking spires, shadowed maintenance tunnels. Somewhere up there, somewhere within this rotting husk of a galactic monument, lay the answers. And the reckoning. Neota stabilized Ravi's injuries with a medgel patch, her hands efficient and steady despite the turbulence. Malachi sat by the hatch, blades resting across his knees, eyes narrowed and far too calm for the madness surrounding them. You realize, Ravi muttered between shallow breaths, they're not going to let us leave. Castral didn't look back. Good. Neota raised an eyebrow but said nothing. They all knew what he meant. They weren't here just to survive anymore. They were here to send a message. The shuttle lurched into another emergency bay, this one higher in the summit structure, closer to the command levels, the political nests where decisions were made and betrayals hatched. As the hatch groaned open, Castral moved first, rifle up, senses burning with tension. The corridor beyond was different from the chaos below. It was silent, too silent. No bodies, no damage, no signs of battle. It was clean, pristine, a different kind of danger entirely. They advanced carefully, boots making soft thuds against the polished floors. Here, the architecture was ornate, high ceilings, intricate carvings depicting the history of the Deathworld Summit. Victories, conquests, broken civilizations displayed like trophies. Ravi spat onto the floor. Arrogant bastards. They pressed forward, passing into a grand hall that seemed to stretch forever. Columns rose, like stone giants, into the gloom above, each one etched with the names of past champions, most of them dead, forgotten, consumed by time and indifference. At the far end of the hall, a figure waited, tall, cloaked, still. Castral signaled a halt, every muscle in his body tensing. The figure stepped forward, the hood sliding back to reveal a face Castral recognized instantly. Commander Thulos, the architect of the summit, the one who had laughed when humanity was invited, the one who had watched them fight, bleed, survive, the one who had tried, and failed, to destroy them. You should not have come this far, Thulos said, his voice carrying easily across the cavernous hall. Castral didn't lower his weapon. You should have killed us when you had the chance. Thulos smiled, a cold, reptilian thing. Oh, but that would have been too quick, too merciful. No, you were meant to be examples. And now? Neota asked, stepping into formation beside Castral. Now, Thulos said, spreading his arms, you are lessons. At his signal, hidden doors in the walls slid open. Dozens of figures stepped out, elite soldiers from a dozen different Deathworld species. Armor gleamed, weapons bristled, killers, every one of them. An ambush. Of course. Castral's heart pounded, but he showed no fear. He glanced sideways at his team. Ravi, injured but ready. Neota, steady as ever. Malachi, grinning like he had been waiting for this exact moment his whole life. He looked back at Thulos. You should have brought more, Castral said. Then the world exploded into motion. The first wave hit like a hammer. Energy bolts screamed through the air. Blades flashed. Explosives detonated. The humans fought back with a savage precision that seemed almost supernatural. Castral moved like a ghost, every shot a kill. Neota deployed disruption grenades that turned enemies against each other. Ravi, even wounded, hacked into the station's subsystems, forcing bulkheads to slam down, isolating groups of attackers and giving them breathing room. Malachi became death incarnate. He flowed through the enemy ranks, blades carving, red lines through flesh and armor alike. He fought not for survival but for retribution, every strike, a brutal accusation, and still they came, wave after wave. You wanted a lesson? Castrol shouted over the roar of battle. Here it is. They fought toward the days where Thulos stood, and touched by the chaos, watching with cruel fascination. Another wave of guards rushed the humans. Ravi threw a device into their path, an implosion mine, collapsing the very air around it into a screaming singularity that devoured flesh, bone, and armor alike. Neota lobbed a plasma charge, vaporizing a heavy weapons squad before they could even line up their shot. Castrol slammed into a hulking brute twice his size, driving his combat knife through the weak spot beneath its jaw. Malachi tackled 3 attackers at once, a whirlwind of steel and blood, and slowly, inexorably, they cut their way forward. Thulos watched, and for the first time, his cold certainty wavered. These were not primitives. These were not prey. They were Deathworlders in their own right. When the last guard fell, twitching and broken, Castrol advanced up the steps toward Thulos. The commander did not retreat. He drew a ceremonial blade from his belt, a relic older than the station itself. So be it, Thulos said. They clashed. Steel rang against steel. Thulos was fast, faster than anything that size had a right to be, and strong. His blows, hammering against Castrol's guard. But Castrol had fought worse. He absorbed the strikes, read the patterns, adjusted. He wasn't the strongest. He wasn't the fastest. He was human. He adapted. A feint, a pivot, a strike, and Thulos staggered back, blood weeping from a wound in his side. You think this changes anything? Thulos spat, fury twisting his features. I think it already has, Castrol said. He drove forward, blade flashing, and this time, when Thulos parried, Castrol let the blade go, stepped inside, and drove a fist into Thulos's throat with bone-breaking force. The commander collapsed, gasping, clutching his ruined windpipe. Castrol stood over him, breathing hard. Neota, Ravi, and Malachi moved in behind him, weapons still ready. You started this, Castrol said coldly. We'll finish it. Thulos tried to speak, tried to summon some last vestige of control. It didn't matter. Castrol turned away, letting the dying commander drown in his own blood. There were bigger battles ahead, bigger wars to fight. They had names now, files pulled from the station's core systems, names of those who had sanctioned the betrayal, names of those who still underestimated humanity. The humans didn't just survive the Deathworld Summit, they conquered it, and now, the galaxy would remember. Because humanity, the species once mocked for its weak gravity, its abundant oxygen, its reality television, had proven a truth older than the stars themselves. Survival wasn't about strength, it was about will, and humanity's will was unbreakable. The station groaned around them, a dying colossus buckling under the weight of its sins. Explosions echoed in the distance as automated defenses, confused by corrupted command, hierarchies, turned on each other. Lights flickered, casting wild, chaotic shadows across blood-stained walls. Castrol stood atop the command dais, looking down at the ruin they had left behind. Thulos's body was still, a dark smear on the pristine floor, a monument to arrogance, a warning for the future. Neota's voice crackled in his ear. Castrol, we need to move. Secondary reactors are failing. If we don't get out, this whole section's going to vent to space. He nodded once, turning from the wreckage of a legacy that had dared to judge humanity and found itself wanting. The team moved quickly, Malachi leading point, Ravi limping but stubbornly refusing to slow down, Neota maintaining constant scans for new threats. They navigated through shattered corridors, past fallen warriors and collapsed bulkheads. The air smelled of smoke, blood, and burnt metal. Ahead, a heavy blast door blocked their path, the last barrier between them and the evac shuttle they had hacked into standby mode earlier. Ravi, Castrol asked without slowing. Already on it, Ravi said, tapping into the access panel with trembling fingers. Gimme 10 seconds. They stacked up, weapons ready. Every second was a lifetime in waiting. Behind them, distant screeches echoed, the sound of something else. Something worse than soldiers, still alive and hunting. The living weapons, the bio-nightmares, abandoned now without handlers or limits. They wouldn't be far behind. The door cracked open with a tortured groan. Malachi slipped through first, sweeping the bay beyond. Clear, for now. They poured through, the blast door slamming shut behind them with a heavy finality. The shuttle sat waiting, engines humming low, ready to blast them free from this sinking hell. As they ran, Neota glanced back one last time. You realize, she said softly, we're not just survivors anymore. No, Castrol said grimly. We're a message. The shuttle's ramp hissed open. They piled inside, Ravi collapsing into the pilot's seat with a grunt of pain, Malachi slamming the hatch shut. Castrol stayed standing until he was sure they were clear. Only then did he allow himself to breathe. The engines roared to life, and the shuttle punched free of the summit station, leaving the crumbling monument behind, swallowed by debris and darkness. The humans watched in silence as the Deathworld Summit, once a symbol of dominance, broke apart into tumbling ruins. It wasn't just a station that had fallen. It was an idea. The idea that humanity was weak. The idea that survival was determined only by the cruelty of a homeworld. The idea that evolution had left them behind. All shattered, all burned away. Castrol turned from the viewport and faced his team. Ravi, blooded but grinning. Nyota, silent but fierce. Malachi, leaning against a bulkhead, cleaning his blades without looking up. We're not done, Castrol said. The others nodded without hesitation. In Ravi's lap, the stolen data core blinked steadily, filled with names, locations, plans, proof that the summit had plotted against them. Proof that others in the galaxy still viewed humanity as a problem to be solved or a threat to be eliminated. Nyota linked the core to their internal system. Streams of data filled the screens, names of powerful Deathworlders, political councils, silent cabals who had decided humanity was too dangerous to live. Targets, Malachi said simply. Opportunities, Nyota corrected. Revenge, Ravi added with a smile. Castrol watched them all and allowed a rare, grim smile to touch his lips. Mission parameters, he said, voice steady, calm, lethal. Survive, expose, retaliate. The shuttle streaked toward the edge of the system, a dark spark against the broken light of dying stars. Somewhere out there, in the cold sprawl of galactic civilization, the powers that had schemed against humanity were still smug in their belief that the problem had been solved. They didn't know yet. They didn't understand what had been unleashed. They didn't realize that humanity wasn't just a collection of survivors. Humanity was an extinction-level event dressed in soft skin and stubborn hearts. Humanity was a storm that would reshape the stars. And now they were coming. For all of them. Castrol sat back in the co-pilot's seat, adjusting course manually. A new waypoint blinked on the screen, the first of many. A council planet where the architects of betrayal gathered. Still planning, still plotting. It wouldn't be planning much longer. The galaxy would learn the hard way what Earth's children really were. Not soft, not stupid, not naive. War-born, pain-tempered, unbreakable. The humans shared a glance, an unspoken oath passing between them. One summit had fallen, but the real reckoning was just beginning. And when it came, there would be no mercy. No survivors. No excuses. Only the echo of a warning that would spread across the stars. Never invite humans to a Deathworld party. Unless you want to watch your empire burn.